All right, looks like we are live. How's everybody doing tonight? Welcome to another episode of Sasquatch Out of the Shadows. Yes, I am back. Obviously, I wasn't here last week as we were on the trip that we're going to be talking about tonight, but fantastic show by Carrick St. Laurent. He did an awesome presentation about Bigfoot, his top 10 list. If you haven't seen that, really good. He did an awesome, thorough presentation. And my screen just went black for a second. We're back. But yeah, so great show last week. Check that out. Next week, actually, we're going to have on Tobias and Emily Wayland. We're going to be talking about Lake Michigan Mothman, all kinds of fun stuff with the Singular Fortean Society. So that should be fun. But tonight will be an awesome show. We really have a fun one planned. We got a full house on deck, and likely more people will be popping in at some point. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk about the Pacific Northwest trip. So I talked about it the show before last. Carrick talked about it a little bit, but we actually spent a while out there in the Pacific Northwest filming some productions for Small Town Monsters with the Olympic Project. So we're going to have some of the members on. Some folks might remember when I had Shane Corson on talking a little bit about the nest sites and the Olympic Project, but we're going to have more of the members on tonight as well as the STM crew. So I guess without further ado, let's just start bringing everybody in. We've got a lot of people coming in. So here we go, guys.
Get your foot out of here. Oh, wow.
Seth is awake.
Entrance.
How's everybody doing?
Good. How about you?
Off to a great start. Seth is just waking up, I guess, from a little pre-show nap. Well, it's also
I got stuck on the couch. It's a deep couch, and I was like,
"Oh, I think I know what you're talking about." I think I slept on that one at one point.
Yeah.
Like you just kind of sink into it. So we were just talking about it right before we went live, but it's like it's nice to see everybody, but it's kind of sad at the same time because it's like I want to be back out in the field. So let's just start out right away. As I mentioned, we were in the Pacific Northwest. So we'll do some introductions first. Obviously, we have Seth and Adrienne Breedlove of Small Town Monsters. We've got that guy, Eli Watson. I mean, he's been on the show a couple times. He's kind of an annoyance at this point.
"Oh,
But no, just kidding. Just kidding. Eli, you guys have obviously seen him on with other recaps. He's great, fantastic guy. Was my right-hand man on this trip. Couldn't have made it possible without him. We've got Rebecca Slick, who's actually one of the Olympic Project members, as well as Todd Hale, who is another Olympic Project member. So I think Shane and possibly Chris will be jumping at some point, and we may have another STM crew member or two jumping in as well. So definitely a full house. Hello to everybody in the chat. I see there's a lot of awesome folks. We got Jeremiah, Bigfoot Society, so ready for this recap.
Oh.
Me too. Got Carrick himself. Carrick is back. Very excited. And like I said, his show was great last week, so go check out his channel. He does some really in-depth presentations. Got that guy, Tate Hieronymus. I mean, he's like related to Bob Hieronymus, #1 fan. Okay. Tactical Bigfoot Research, Mike. Hey, Mike. Awesome to see you as well. And hello to everybody else in the chat. So before we get started actually on the trip, Seth, you want to talk a little bit about the Journey premiere since we just popped Mike in there for a second?
oh yeah. So yeah, we premiered the movie, the next On the Trail of Bigfoot movie, the one that will precede On the Trail of Bigfoot, the Discovery, and it was cool. It's weird because we're premiering this movie 2 months before it actually comes out. Like, it doesn't come out until June 8th, but we had booked the theater for that date like back in like December or something. So we just stuck with it just because I thought it was about time that people experienced something other than their own living rooms. So we kind of made this movie, and I talked about it like in the introduction for the movie. We made this movie for people who maybe, spent the last year locked in their houses or whatever, and so that they could, at least experience through our trip, they could experience another state, that maybe they haven't been, and a lot of people haven't been to the Adirondacks. So we're showing that area to a lot of people for the first time. There was, maybe like 200 people showed up, which
awesome.
Yeah, I mean, for the Palace, this was by far the biggest event that they've had since they locked down in March of 2020. So it was it was the first event where they opened the balcony back up, and they had popcorn and all that stuff again. So it was kind of like a return to normalcy to some degree.
Yeah, somewhat.
Yeah. I don't know how to turn.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
No, that's great. And folks might remember that have been watching that long that we actually did a recap right after that trip. That was back in June, July. I was in end of June at beginning of July.
Yeah.
That was like our first trip really out since the whole lockdowns. And for folks that need a reminder, that's the On the Trail of Bigfoot, which is about the Adirondacks, a little bit of Western Massachusetts. So Steve Coles, a lot of those kind of Northeast researchers, Paul Bartholomew, Whitehall, New York. I think it shows the Adirondacks in a way they've never been shown before. That's just, having seen some of the other stuff about it, I don't think there's been that. Nobody's tried that scope that we did with that. So super excited for that. For Kickstarter backers, you've probably already seen it, but for folks that want to check it out, that'll be out in June, you said, correct?
Yeah, June 8th. It'll be widely available on basically like every major VOD platform.
Awesome. I'll be definitely posting about that. But I forgot to mention, this is actually technically my 1-year anniversary show since I started this live stream. That was last April. I think it was in between last week's show and this week's show, but because I guess the date was changed. So it's been a year since I've been doing this live stream. So thanks to those that listened to my rambling and put up with this whole deal. So awesome. But all right, on to the main event, I suppose. Let's talk about I just have to read this comment. Kevin, one of our Canadian fans, hilarious zinger as always, says Todd is joining the show from Amsterdam by the looks of it. Are you in the red light district? That's too good. He's always got some great ones. Oh man, I love it. But all right, let's start talking about it right away. Where to begin? I guess let's do no longer Amsterdam down there. Let's start out with just initial impressions, I guess, for those of us that obviously aren't from the PNW. Obviously the OP members, you guys are out there a lot, but let's just start. Eli, what was your initial impression of the PNW? I'll go last. We'll just kind of go down the row.
Dude, it was awesome. I mean, such a beautiful area and just like a huge, huge area. I don't think a lot of people realize like just how big the forest is up there. And I mean, like, I thought I understood what big was. And then I saw it and I was like, oh, that's big,
Coming from Eli, there you go. Man, a few words.
I'm gonna leave it there.
Awesome. All right, so let's go with Adrienne. What was your impression initially of the PNW?
Well, this was my first trip out west at all. So it was unlike anything I've ever seen before, really, and it was just gorgeous. And I keep telling Seth since we got back, as we're driving now, I'll look at the horizon and it just seems so bland. There's nothing to see here.
No giant mountain.
It was just amazing. Like, I mean, the forest itself, but even just, when we were driving for hours at a time, there was always something to look at and some beautiful scenery, just, driving from one place to another. But I mean, the forest, the size of the trees, the amount of undergrowth, I mean, it was beautiful. It exceeded all of my expectations, and my expectations were pretty high. So I loved it.
Yeah. This was my second time out there.
Yeah, it's a return, right? How was it the second time?
Well, I mean, for me, it was like the first time I clearly didn't see any of it because this was like all new for me. I mean, I was asked recently which was more wild, the Adirondacks or the Olympic Peninsula. And it's weird because I forget who I was talking to, but I said the acreage in the Adirondacks is substantially larger than the Olympic Peninsula. Like it almost doesn't compare. It's that much. Like Adirondack Park is so much bigger. But at the end of the day, the Olympic Peninsula just feels infinitely wilder than the Adirondacks. I don't know why that is, but it's like she said, like the size of the trees in the forest and there's like an unpredictability to that place where you could storms will drop out of nowhere. And
I think coming from the East Coast, it's like almost otherworldly.
Yeah.
there's just something different about it. I don't know.
Yeah, and I
Not
mean,
to take over your
no, but yeah, I mean, the whole rainforest and all that stuff was so crazy to get to see finally, because I missed out on it, the first time because I was vomiting in a hotel somewhere. But this time I got to see it, and there was no vomit. I passed out, but there was no vomit other than Aaron's, and it was just no. I mean, it was seriously unbelievable. I want to go. I am going back. I'll be back in Washington in June, but
Nice.
I almost immediately wanted to be back. I didn't want to leave. I said it. I told Adrienne multiple times, like, if I could have flown our dogs and my son out there, we would have just stayed until whenever, because it felt like we were leaving too soon. Like I get attached to places, but this is a different kind of attachment. It's like I'm attached to the Adirondacks. It's that same kind of thing where when I'm there, I don't want to leave.
Totally. I mean, I can't agree more. It's just such a mystical place. And comparing it to the Adirondacks, there's some certainly really wild areas. And it reminded me a lot of, my kind of stomping grounds here in the White Mountains in New Hampshire. But there was still that factor of, you could be up on a mountain, and then within half an hour, you're in Lake Placid, which is like a famous place you can get food and everything. Whereas I feel like the Olympics, everything's just further away. I mean, just that area, just driving through there, it was just unreal. And for me, especially, growing up, having seen it on TV and a lot of programs and documentaries, and following other researchers like the Olympic Project and other groups, just seeing it and finally being able to see it for the first time was like just mind blowing. And we hit the ground running right away, Eli and I, because we actually showed up 2 days after Seth and the rest of the crew, and we went straight from the airport to Mount Rainier. And we were like hiking around in the snow, and then basically went from hiking around in the snow to being, in the Olympics. And in the forest that night, we camped out, and we, met up with Shane and Rebecca and Todd and everybody. And it was like, just what a day, seeing that different type of terrain, going from 10,000 plus feet to basically being near the Pacific Ocean. It felt so weird, but it was just what a feeling. But thank you all for the comments. I see a lot of people saying happy 1 year anniversary for the show. Kevin Hamilton, thank you for the super chat. Appreciate that. Robert Girava says, hello from Canada. Can't wait till the border is open again. I would love to show Harrison to y'all. That's definitely on my list. Harrison Hot Springs.
It's very cool. Happen.
Yeah, for sure. But awesome. So let's talk a little bit to the Olympic Project members. I just want to kind of introduce them to folks and maybe say a little bit about what they do. Rebecca, why don't you start us off and maybe tell us a little bit about kind of what you do with the Olympic Project?
Well, I've been part of it for a couple years now, and usually I'm just able to go out whenever they do any expeditions. I'm able to go camping and backpacking with them, and I like to look for the small things. I like to look for detailed things, and that's what was really fun with this expedition was when we found that trackway, the Cougar trackway, with Shane Corson, and so I love helping out with that. I'm a naturalist at heart. I've always wanted to work with this kind of thing, and this is just, I never could have imagined years ago that I would get to be part of this. I'm just thrilled all the time.
Oh, totally. That was a special moment. Adrienne was there with us. I think Eli was taking a little rest then. Todd, no, he wasn't. I think it was Aaron was there too. But we found basically we were walking behind, the OP kind of property there in the Olympics. We were walking on this trail, and we were finding these like scuff marks, almost like a little paw scrapes and a little pile of dirt. And initially we thought, was it a bear? Was it a bobcat? Then there was obviously cat urine in one of the piles. You could smell it. And then we decided it was probably a mountain lion. And then actually finding clear tracks. And Rebecca found the first one as we were walking in, it was like a patch of dirt or something. It wasn't like mud like the other one, right? It was a little bit less defined.
Yeah. I found it a few seconds after Shane had found one further up. So honestly, Shane had been the first one to find them. And that kind of made me, look a little bit closer at where I was already looking, and found one that wasn't as clear, but I was still really excited because that was the first one I'd found like that before. I've seen impressions that you look at them and you're like, that's probably what that is, but not that well defined. So, it was really exciting. I'm glad you guys got to be part of that.
Yeah.
Oh, I know. That was really special for me too, especially, because of Lions of the East, that was a big project for me. And before COVID destroyed it. But just focusing on mountain lions and a lot of people talk about out here east that there's evidence of mountain lions, but there you live with them daily. I mean, a lot of these areas we were going in, as Derek was talking about, there's generations of mountain lions that are living in this area, and that young Tom, I guess we found the footprints of, could have been the offspring of the one that Derek Randall has described as the Arnold Schwarzenegger looking mountain lion that lives kind of in that area. So it's just knowing that they're there is it's kind of disconcerting, but it's kind of cool. That made me want to stay on that mountain that night. Just camp immediately. I'm like, this makes me want to stay here more, even though we're all putting one round in the chamber and kind of making sure we have all the precautions. But it was it was totally cool, totally awesome experience. So I'm glad I was there too. So Todd, let's talk a little bit about what you do with the Olympic Project.
Well, I'm basically a field guy. I do a lot of the field work. We do a lot of the hiking into the nests. I go to the conferences, but I don't speak. Luckily, Derek invited me into the nest a few years ago, and I've been heavily involved with that. And we were going there quite a bit until COVID hit, and that kind of stopped everything last year. But we're starting up again. So yeah, that's basically it. I'm a field guy.
Yeah. And Todd is awesome. He actually accompanied Eli, Aaron, and myself as we went down into the ravine, basically, just to check out some of these areas. And Todd was right there with us. And you're explaining to us about a lot of the stuff. And obviously you guys had found, the new nest, we'll call it.
Yeah.
But maybe there's a good chance to actually talk about, since it seems like Seth is just gone. He's done with the show.
It's the storm.
Tommy needed
Taco Bell.
The storm. Let's just talk a little bit about that, actually. So when we were there, obviously we had the privilege, and I say privilege because not everybody's able to go in there into the nest site. So do you guys want to talk a little bit about the nest sites themselves? And I've had, as I mentioned, I've had Shane on the show before a few months ago, maybe to jog people's memory a little bit, what exactly the nest site is. Which one of you guys wants to start?
Go ahead, Rebecca.
Oh, I was going to say, Todd, you were there for the latest thing, so you should probably have at it.
Shane's a lot more eloquent than I am with all this. You want to talk about just the nest area in general or the new nest?
Yeah, just talk about the nest area in general, because I think that's one of the big reasons why, we were there and we spent the most of our time there at that, area where there's the nest kind of stuff going on.
Okay. I'm freezing up here.
I'm just going to pop we got Aaron coming in here, so I'm just going to pop Aaron in real quick. Hey, okay. Aaron.
What's going on?
So Aaron, for folks who don't know, Aaron is one of the STM crew members that was there with us. Hilarious guy. Kept us amused thoroughly through and through. So anyway, all right. Aaron, we're just talking about the nest site. We're having Todd explain that. So Todd, go right ahead.
It was about 5 years ago. There was a timber cruiser in there to tag trees for cutting, possibly harvesting. And he came across these nests, or he came across this anomalies that he'd never seen before. And it kind of freaked him out. And I guess Derek had done some work for him before, so he called Derek and James, and I believe Shane was in there in the first time. I'm not sure. I wasn't with the Olympic Project at this time, so
sure.
I'm just going off memory. They went down there and investigated, and the guy had never seen this before in like 25 years of timber cruising. So they were basically ground nests, varying in size, about a foot thick, made out of huckleberry. And that area is just inundated with huckleberry, and it's super thick. It's really high. I've heard people make the argument a huckleberry doesn't get over 6 feet. This huckleberry, I've seen it up to about 15 feet, So we have pictures and video. So Derek went home. He tried to figure out what these things were, and he couldn't find any North American animal that made these nests, made these ground beds. People kind of get mixed up with nests and shelters. We're not talking about a shelter. It's a flat circular or oval bed made out of huckleberry. So then he started to look to other primates, and I guess he found that gorilla nests most closely resembled that. So they went in there exploring, and they found, I think, 21 of these nests, varying in size and location, and they're all strategically placed on this ridge. It's hard to describe to people, but basically you have a ridge running one way, and then you have finger ridges that go down from there, and those finger ridges drop right into a creek. So all these nests are strategically placed on those finger ridges with huge huckleberry behind them. So you would never see these things. And if anything was coming towards them, they have a quick escape route right down that ridge, down into the creek area. It'd be very easy to escape. And that stuff is so thick, you can hear anybody coming from, a mile away. So basically, I got invited to go out there, what was it, 3 years ago, I think. And the first time I went down in there, I was blown away. They were in a lot better shape than they are now when you guys saw them. Let me turn this off. They're in a lot better shape than when you guys see them now. They're all degraded, and everything's really just, it's absorbing back into the earth. And even when I saw them, they were pretty bad compared to the first time they discovered them, because everything was still green. It was about a foot thick. They vary from like small ones up in a bush, like 2 feet, all the way up to like a 6 by 9 foot nest. That noise is distracting me. Do you guys hear a noise? Some kind of clicking?
I do.
Is it Seth typing?
No, it's not me.
I don't know.
Okay.
That's weird. Maybe somebody's mic or something, but.
Okay. So basically, we go down in there all the time. We hike around. We try and find evidence. We try and collect evidence. And there was a few years of that. They thought the nest might have been made in February because of how the leaves were breaking down. So last year, Shane and I, we would start hitting the nest area around February every year, because January obviously is a lot of snow and ice. So we go out there as soon as we can. So last year, Shane and I walked in on what we think was a Sasquatch in the process of building a nest. And that happened to be in February. So we backed out of there. We called Derek. He came out the next day. We went in there. Yeah, a nest was being built. And I mean, it's pretty incredible. It was crazy. It was scary, all that. It was exciting, all that fun stuff. But
yeah,
at that point, we had a pattern, and it was a provable pattern. I think 4 years apart, being built in February out of huckleberry. And of course, Shane could give you a little bit more detail, and he's a little bit more eloquent than I am, but that's basically the gist of it. We found, I think, 4 footprints, and 2 handprints, and like knuckle prints under the nesting material. When we started pulling the nesting material out of there, we were wearing, this is pre-COVID, we were wearing gloves, masks, because we didn't want
to contaminate anything, right? Yeah.
Right. Meldrum was supposed to come out, and all that kind of went in the just took a crap as soon as COVID hit. So we decided we're just going to go in there, collect everything as quickly as possible, and cast all the tracks, because we didn't know what was going to happen with COVID. And that's basically what we did. So Shane and I collected like 6 30-gallon paper trash bags of nesting material. I mean, there's a huge pile, and there's tons of hair in there, and we were removing all that. And there were footprints underneath the nesting material, like I said, and knuckle prints. There's a burrow it was being dug out, and all this dirt was kind of fresh, and there were knuckle prints in there. And that's basically
that handprint you guys have is really impressive. I mean, we got to see the handprint at the OP cabin, and it was like really stands out. I mean, you can kind of see that the handprint really well. But one thing that really impressed me about just going to the nest site, and Eli and I went pretty much straight from Mount Rainier to that area, and it was raining actually that night. We hiked down. Rebecca and Chris were down in that spot, and then I think we hiked down with Todd. Yeah, it was Todd, Shane, Eli, and I, and we got soaked, absolutely soaked going in there. You're getting slapped in the face by huckleberries like crazy. We were soaked head to toe, and we're warming up by the fire. But Rebecca, from what I understand, you guys had some kind of like a noise or something happen when you were down there that night.
Yeah, we were holding down the fort, trying to keep a fire going for a few hours in the rain. But right before that, Chris had gone down to set up some audio and set up a trail camera closer to one of the old nests, and heard a very large branch break and yelled, "Hello," thinking that's, either a bear. It's got to be either a bear or a person in here, but we would have known if somebody was in there because that's the only way in, where we came in, and didn't hear anything else. Something large was moving away, and so could have been a bear, but he got back and he told me about it, and I thought about it. I said, well, I did hear some movement outside of camp, but I just figured it was you crashing around, setting stuff up. And he's like, no, I was being quiet. So who knows, something was either, I don't know. I think if it was a bear, it would have just gotten out of there, but I can't say for sure what it was.
It was crazy.
I'd like to think it was something else.
And somebody mentioned, I think it may have been Shane, when we were when we got to the camp, like, they are having something go down there, and that immediately made me want to go down there as well. But speaking of the man himself, let's pop in Shane. Oh my God, it says the studio is limited to 6 people on screen.
Uh-oh.
I did not know that was a thing. Okay. Aaron, I'm just going to pop you out for a minute here and let Shane in. We'll do a little...
You can get me out if you need to.
Okay, I'll pop you out, Rebecca, because I do want to get something from Aaron. I want him to do his impression. So I'll pop you back in here, but let's just get Shane in real quick.
All right.
Thanks. I probably should have researched this beforehand, but anyway, here's Shane. What's going on, man?
Not much. I hate to kick somebody out of the group here. That sucks.
No, that's okay. We were just talking about the nest sites and everything, and just kind of our impressions of it. I mean, just a crazy place, as I was saying. And I know Eli and I were there the first night, and then Seth and everyone else came down for the rest of the weekend. And it was just like totally wild to be in there. And we were the first people to sleep basically in that area, right?
Oh, absolutely. Actually, we've never camped in. We always camp on the outskirts of the nest area. This is the first time we've actually, Derek Randles and I had made a camp for this group, for whoever wanted to camp down kind of towards the original nest site. That was the first. We've never done that. And now we have a camp spot, for eternity, but that's something completely new. We've never done that before. We always stayed on the outskirts. We travel into those areas, but never camp in that area. We'd stay, several hundred yards away. And that was to not leave an impression, basically, and just kind of leave that area alone and try to see what takes place in this area. So that was kind of special for me, and you guys got to be included in that, which I thought was awesome. And Alex, I got to say, you and Eli are true woodsmen, man. I'll tell you, I was impressed with your camping skills, your hiking skills. Even Seth kind of blew my mind. I'm pretty sure he thought I was going to try and kill him again, but he's been working out. Seth's been working out. He's got some legs under him now.
I work at it, man. This the whole last 2 years we're building up to this. It was like a Rocky training montage. Me just working out. There was a poster of Shane on my wall while I was doing it. I was like, it's not gonna do it to me again.
That mountain in the Adirondacks, that was like just the precursor.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, no, I mean, it shouldn't be understated how difficult of a hike it is to get into that area. Oh, we have Nicole making an appearance. She's welcome to jump in with you as well if you guys want to talk about it, because I do want to get your guys' impression of the PNW in general. But Yeah, the hike into there was rough. Like I said, I have multiple videos of me filming myself. Of course, the moment I turn the camera is when I get slapped in the face with the huckleberries. So I guess it makes for good content, but it can't be understated how difficult it is to get in there. And I mean, Eli, you're the Southern Californian, you're the desert boy. What did you think of that area?
I think what struck me the most was how wet everything was. It's just like, stop. You're making me lose my composure. No, I don't know. I thought I was going to die.
It was cold.
First night.
Wet.
It was very wet and cold that first
It
night,
was wet
especially.
and cold. We're going like, when you said we were going to camp, I was like, oh, it's going to be easy camping. And then we meet up with these guys and immediately we're hiking off trail, like a very steep slope, I might add, in the darkness, and it's raining. And then I'm walking around and I'm thinking everything's okay. And Shane's like, no, be careful there. There's a cliff. And I'm like, I'm going to die.
No, but they were the Olympic project. You guys are just fantastic hosts. I mean, both in the Nest area and obviously when we went up to the OP property in kind of the North Olympics, which was just awesome. But man,
can we mention that actually?
Yeah, absolutely. No, totally.
The fact that like while we were hiking in there, there was an entire group from Ohio, and then you guys from Southern California and New Hampshire. So. And I'm sure they didn't need to, but there was definitely like a mother hen aspect to like Shane walking us in there. And I felt like they were all very conscious of the fact that we had no idea where we were or what we were doing. Or
I just wanted to carry you guys out. I just didn't want to carry someone else. That was it. That was my only motivation.
Oh, Shane did a fantastic job. It was just a pleasure just spending time with you down in those areas and just talking and hearing all the other stories that you guys have had, because obviously what the Olympic Project does and what you guys do as individual researchers goes well beyond just the Nest site, whether we're talking about the Olympics or Rebecca and Chris, they're a little bit further south in Washington. Shane, you've done a lot of stuff in parts of Oregon. Todd, you were talking about stuff in the Sierras. I mean, Bart Catino, like a lot of really interesting stuff, I guess, in Bigfoot history, just all up and down. And now you guys are all sort of up in that Washington area, which I think is really interesting and really cool. And I'm glad we get to tell that story. And before we actually start talking a little bit about the films, I want to get just Aaron and Nicole's impression, if she wants to jump in, about what did you guys think of the PNW?
We were ready to move out there. It's hard to get Nicole to want to move somewhere or to leave, but some place like that, we were ready to stay.
I think we're all in that same boat.
Just the view alone. I called for Nicole. I'm not sure where she went to. Her sister's over here, but yeah, it was Nicole's experience was just, I don't know, because she's never been to anything like a Bigfoot group or anything like that before, so she didn't know what to expect. And right. I think everybody being so friendly, she wanted to join right in. And myself, I mean, I'm kind of a noob in the area of Bigfoot as well, so getting to meet everybody like fresh, new face and I don't know the name and things like that. It's like this is a great experience for me. I really appreciate it. So
there was a couple of really funny moments. I think one of the ones when we came off the hike and he's standing there talking to Ron Moorhead, and he's like, I'm looking, I'm like, oh my God. I think I was talking, I don't know, Eli was already there, but I'm like, oh my God, that's Ron Moorhead. And he's just casually talking to him about, I don't even know what. And I went up and like, oh, hi, Mr. Moorhead. And we talked a little bit. Yeah, cheeseburgers. And I asked Aaron afterwards, I'm like, did you know who that was? Like, no, I think he had a really cool like hat with the crocodile teeth. I just thought he was cool.
We were talking about how to kill crocodiles.
You want to tell him about the Midwest Whooper?
Yeah. I was like, wait, he's the I was making up names because I forgot. I was trying to explain to Nicole the scenario.
the Sierra sounds.
'Cause- yeah, and I felt like an idiot because he goes, I'm like, hi, I'm Aaron. He goes, hi, I'm Ron. I'm like, Don? And he's like, no, Ron. And I'm like, oh, jeez.
Todd does the best Ron Moorhead impression.
Can we hear it?
I'm not doing it here. No.
It's because his voice is
come
so
back to haunt
distinct.
me.
You hear Ron Moorhead, you know exactly who it is, at least for those of us that are aware. But so you thought it was the Midwest Whooper, huh?
Yeah. I was like, I was explaining to Eli. I was like, yeah, he's got the Midwest Whooper, or what? What's the name? The Sierra sounds.
That's pretty close.
Well, that's what I love about this crew too, because it's like we have folks like you guys that are, those of us that are Bigfoot nerds. For us, there was that one moment I think where Aaron was riding with Eli and I, and we were like talking about something Bigfoot related, and we're kind of like, "What do you think about this, Aaron?" He's like, "Man, I sometimes have no idea what you guys are talking about. It's like you're just going back and forth about this," and that's what's so interesting to outsiders because we get, I think, so insulated in this community that we just kind of assume people know things. So it's funny to have those kinds of interactions, but man, yeah,
I couldn't.
What a time.
I couldn't believe the way Aaron wanted to just run around and climb on everything like a kid. I said, man, he's going to get hurt because everything's so slippery and wet. Like, he's going to get hurt because it happens to all of us. But he's just jumping around.
That's me on every shoot, like convinced Aaron somehow is going to be coming home in like a body bag or track. It's like, it's terrifying.
I was like, man, I remember when I had that kind of energy.
He did climb down into a waterfall later on in that trip too.
Yeah, he climbed down into Salduck Falls.
Wow. Aaron and I did do that little thing up at the spot there. I always forget the name of that rock. Fouts Rock. Yep.
Yeah.
We climbed into that cave. That was pretty crazy because there was one point where there was like a very tight squeeze we had to get through.
Yeah.
That was pretty great. But okay. All right. Let's talk a little bit now about the production. So obviously, this is the kind of the setup a little bit, but let's talk about On the Trail of Bigfoot, the Discovery. So Seth, you want to talk a little bit about that? Go right ahead.
It's a movie that's going to come out later this year. The thing about it that was really cemented for me early on in the trip is like the approach to these projects is being sort of made up as we go. So like if anyone knows anything about On the Trail of, it started with Alex doing On the Trail of Champ basically completely alone, and I was such a fan of that idea that I did On the Trail of Bigfoot essentially alone. In terms of like how I was filming it, it was usually just me with a camera filming it. And then that's changed with On the Trail of Bigfoot, the Journey. It was a crew of like 6 or 7 of us or whatever.
Now it's the biggest crew.
Yeah. Now it's probably the biggest crew of any of the STM projects. But the Journey was weird because I was still trying to do the stuff I had done when it was just me on my own. So like we made the Journey, and on the first night up in New York, we got poured on and we were camping out in the woods, and I had thousands of dollars worth of camera gear in my tent and my tent starts leaking, and I woke up at like 3 a.m. and all my gear is like wet, and I'm like, I got to get out of here. So I start packing all my gear up, and then we had to lug it out to a parking lot. But that was like the point where I was like, okay, so I have to there's got to be a different approach to these. So like with the Discovery, the coolest thing to me about the Discovery is we were actually able to blend both ways of making On the Trail of. So Alex was there doing Beyond the Trail where he's actually camping out, and I was still able to do the STM thing where you've got so much gear that you've got to have a house where you can charge 1,000 batteries at night and offload footage. Cause we had, what did I tell you, Aaron, that you'd shot just Aaron alone?
400 or 500.
Aaron on his own was shooting 400 or 500 shots per day. When I offloaded his footage, there were over 2,000 shots just on Aaron's camera. That's one camera out of like 5.
Mm-hmm.
So there's no way I can do a project of this scale and actually like do it roughing it unless we had, I mean, I'm sure there's a way we could figure it out, but it's so complicated.
You'd have to have a bazillion batteries.
Yeah, there'd have to be an endless supply of batteries and all this stuff. So that was like kind of cool to learn like a new way of approaching this project, because I approached it completely different from the last On the Trail of Bigfoot, which was the journey. And then I think just like we've never made any project that focused so heavily on one organization, to the extent that other than one witness, every single person in this movie is a member of the Olympic Project. So it is the first time I've ever done that. It's the first time we've ever done that. And it's the first time I've approached a project where I wanted to tell one organization's story across a feature-length film. We did the NAWAC episode of On the Trail of Bigfoot, but that was, I mean, compared to this, that was a very small, intimate little project. This is a massive undertaking. We interviewed I think 9 members of the Olympic Project, and then one witness, and I might I'll probably interview Mark and we got Alex too, I forgot. So there's a couple non-OP members in there, but they're there sort of to talk about their outsider perspective on the OP. So I just have never done a project like that. And it was all born out of my love for that In Search of Bigfoot movie,
Right.
About Robert W. Morgan. And that is a movie about Robert W. Morgan and his group and how they attempt their search for Sasquatch. And I loved that idea. And so, I don't want to talk all night about it, but I mean, I think it's going to be a totally unique look at the field of Sasquatch research and investigation. And honestly, man, and I'm not just saying this because they're there, but I could not be more excited to tell the story of a group of people, because, when we were working on this project and getting ready for it, in pre-production, I didn't know how the OP was going to respond to us being there. I didn't know if you guys. I know Shane was pumped about it because I'd been talking to Shane for a while, and I knew Shane was going to be excited, and I thought I knew Derek would be okay with it. I didn't know how he'd feel, honestly, but I mean, you know what? Like, just behind the scenes, very open and transparent. The first thing Derek said to me when I saw him was he asked about my mom, and like it was honestly at that moment that I was like, this is the best group of people we could be doing this project with, because it goes beyond just like Bigfoot. It's much more about what amazing people there are involved in that group and getting to tell their story. And I couldn't be more excited to tell it. I've got to do 2 other films. I got to edit 2 more films before I can get to this film. And it's all I want to do right now is like get into that. But like, and again, I've said this to Adrian, but like, I absolutely loved hanging out with Chris Spencer on the first night when we were out. That was like my baptism into the net site. Was like,
that was very cool.
Yeah, walking around with Chris and having him show us how he does his audio recording and everything, and then finding out Rebecca's from Westmoreland area, and I was like stoked about that. And so, and then Todd was trying to kill me a couple times. Like I caught him like pointing his gun at my back. So, like, there's good and bad in the group, but no, man, I can't wait to do. I can't wait to get into it. And I think, like, I feel a very big responsibility to do this honestly and in a way that portrays the group as they are, which is, just good people who are doing everything they can to further the field. And that's the ultimate goal, is to tell that story.
If I can jump in here real quick, I just want to say, it was an absolute pleasure having you guys out. You guys give me hope for humanity, honestly. Every single one of you individuals that were involved, and a lot of them aren't even here, just amazing individuals and just amazing folk that know how to have fun, but know how to get down to business and get stuff done. I was totally floored. Seth, we've met before, and I've met Mark, but I haven't met a lot of these other individuals. And over the, a couple of days, 4 days, 5 days, with Alex and us. I mean, amazing individuals that are very talented individuals. So I was so stoked to work with you guys. And I knew, don't get me wrong, there was some hesitation with some other OP members because we've worked with other production companies and we usually turn them. I mean, 99% of the time we turn them down. We do just turn them down because they want this, they want that. And I know your work, Seth. I pretty much own everything you've done. I've watched everything you've done. And we are thoroughly impressed as an organization to have worked with you. And going into this, everybody felt pretty comfy about it. So yeah, hats off to you guys, every single one of you guys, for making this such a great thing. And you guys gave us a platform to share some of what we do. And that's, none of us look for money. We spend everything out of our own pocket, but a platform is everything to us. And this is going to be a wonderful platform to share a lot of what we do. So thanks again, guys. And man, you guys are bad mamma jambas.
Yeah.
The feelings are mutual. I mean, it completely, we went into that, it was a project, right? Obviously, but I came out with people that I consider friends. I mean, all of you guys, the three bottom half on the screens here, we spent a lot of time with you guys, just hanging out and talking. And that was just like that human to human connection was just really great, especially in this day and age where, that's almost frowned upon in some ways. So just spending that time out there and, just having those experiences and being able to show that project actually. And I'm so excited for what Seth's going to do with the Discovery, because I saw what he did with the journey, this epic trip we went on, and just like, if it just feels right. So I'm excited to see that. And I'm excited to see kind of what happens when I start doing Beyond the Trail, because that's sort of as Seth was saying, it's kind of like a companion piece almost. I mean, you could probably watch either of them individually, but if you watch separately, or if you watch them together, you'll get more of a holistic picture. I mean, what some of my favorite moments, and I've been reviewing the footage now since I got back, was just hanging out by the campfire and just turning a camera on and having Shane and Rebecca and Todd and Chris just talk about like some of their experiences hanging out by the nest site, and just special moments like that I'll never forget. It was one of my favorite, filmmaking trips ever that I've done. And it was just such a whirlwind pace. It was like, as I said, the moment we hit the ground, we were in Mount Rainier, then we were in the nest area, then we were in the Olympics and Hoh Rainforest. I actually got to see a buddy as well who's stationed in the Air Force out there. It was just such a fantastic time. And even that last night, Eli and I had to leave, and that was probably the low point in the trip, was that drive to the airport at 1 a.m.
Yeah.
Our GPS decided to take us a totally different route, so it added like an extra hour and a half. And I wake up at one point and I'm like, Eli, why are we just on these winding roads? Shouldn't we be on the highway by now? And he's like, oh, I don't know. And I checked the GPS, and I'm like, why did you let me? I should have checked it before, because it's like we're going all the way around.
Oh my God!
You're not allowed to leave. No.
Oh man, we pulled over like 5 times to take little power naps, because that was zombie mode at the airport. Oh my gosh,
dude! Once I was behind the wheel, I wasn't gonna be able to check my phone to see if we were going the right way, because I was so tired. It was either look at the road or look at my phone and possibly die, it was wild. But man, that just goes to show, like, we were so tired from the trip, but it was just amazing. Every moment was just incredible. Just from seeing Lake Crescent, we took a dip into the lake, obviously, and I'll pop Aaron, or I guess Aaron is gone, but he just left. But we jumped into the lake.
A tree somewhere now.
Oh man, we jumped into Lake Crescent, which was really cold but really refreshing water. Beautiful clarity, and from what I understand, there's also species of fish there that isn't really found elsewhere. I know you guys were talking about that, but man, I don't know what else to say. It's just been said already, but the feelings are mutual. You guys are just a fantastic group, and one of the best Bigfoot research groups out there, in my opinion. I just think the evidence and the things that you guys have gathered over the years, and that's what I really hope to show in both the films that are going to be coming out, just displaying what you guys have found, because you're not these jump the gun kind of guys and gals that just every piece of little twig or anything you throw online, and you're always so eager to show people. You guys take your time. You're very selective about who you release this information to and who you even let in. And I really appreciate that. And I think that's needed more in the Bigfoot world, if we want to call it that. So the fact that you chose us to kind of take us out there and let us showcase that, we can only hope that we'll do it justice. And I think we will, because it's just, there's just so much footage. I'm like Seth. I can't wait to get started. I'm going to start mine a little bit sooner, but
there's legitimately a discussion on the way to the airport about if this was for everyone in the group. This was their favorite STM shoot, which is pretty wild if you think about how many shoots STM has had. I mean, it's like 20 plus shoots that we've been on. And I think everyone in the group was saying this was sort of their favorite. So, I mean, it was nonstop, on our end, in terms of what we did. We got in on Wednesday and we're filming. We did this, we bought Discovery passes and we're on some logging road out in the middle of nowhere, completely lost our first night in the area. We'd only been in the state for like 4 hours and we were completely lost in the middle of nowhere. And so and that was like setting the stage for how the whole trip would be for us. Like there was never a point where, until that last day, where there was any downtime. We were always working, and when I say working, I mean filming, which is the type of work I love. So, I mean, the whole trip all around was just a blast. Every single thing we got to do. I felt, like on these trips, I always take like a minute and thank God that I'm doing what I get to do. And every day there was like a dozen of those moments where I had to take a minute and thank God that I was doing what I was doing.
Well, Seth, not all who wander are lost. So you guys definitely wander.
I'm pretty lost.
Go ahead.
I had no idea what to expect with this whole thing, because I've never done any of this stuff before. And just going into it, I was just kind of thinking, okay, we'll probably film a little bit here in the day, film a little bit there. But I was blown away because we were filming all the time. Even the last night when we were up at the camp above the property, when Shane was bringing you guys up there, I was like, I'm going to go get Seth and those guys. Are they just going to hang out? He's like, no, they're going to film too. I said, they're going to keep filming? Okay, cool. Just filming. I can't believe how much footage you guys must have,
It's hours. I mean, we're looking at like 2 terabytes, which normally, if we were shooting in 4K, that wouldn't be that substantial, but we were shooting in 1080. So 1080 at 2 terabytes, it's a monumental, it's probably, I can't even guesstimate. I know on any one camera, on any of the like the main cameras, there was probably 30 plus hours of footage, but the handy cams were going almost nonstop.
Yeah.
So those are going to be probably like 100 hours per. I mean, it's insane. I don't know how I'm going through all this footage.
It's wild. Yeah. The handycam. I mean, I kind of had Eli doing most of the handycam stuff. It was really nice. And we talked a little bit about kind of that style with On the Trail of and everything, and how it sort of it's like the one-man crew, but it was so much easier having, somebody that I trust, that I've worked with before, being able to do stuff. Like I was able to get Eli to do drone stuff. That was one less thing I had to worry about, which was just awesome, having that dynamic. But man, I think my project's in around almost 500 gigabytes. So, and we didn't do nearly as many interviews, obviously, as you guys. You did, all the sit down interviews with all the members. We did a sit down with Shane, and then kind of a few like fire sit downs. But aside from that, we were just rolling the whole time. I mean, there's just so much footage, all the mishaps along the way. I mean, rescuing a dog. Eli and I had to rescue this dog, and it'll all be in there, to some extent. Just kind of the fun moments. But man, it was definitely the trip of a lifetime. It was just one of my highlights. We had talked about it for so long, especially Eli and I and Seth and Shane as well. I'd been talking to him a bit before the trip, and like the hype was so real. And I think it absolutely exceeded my expectations as well. Just from everything, the terrain, from meeting you guys, just being out there, absolutely phenomenal. So 10 out of 10 would do it again, no doubt.
Definitely.
Speaking of highlights here, one of my highlights was Seth, if this small town monsters doesn't work out for you down the road here, you got an amazing voice, man.
Dude, no joke. Same to you.
I'm taking this guy up the hill and he starts singing. I think it was Elton John or something.
Elton John, yeah.
I was like, no freaking way is this happening right now. This is a first for the OP, and I think we kind of bonded. Maybe there could be something down the road here, maybe American Idol. I don't know. voice. Hey, Seth, you got it going on, man. You got a great voice.
Yeah, you know what though? That night, there were some of my favorite moments that night because I got to hang out with like David Ellis and Mark Marcel, and Derek back at the OP at the cabin for a little bit, and it was just the four of us. I don't know where everyone else was, but there was this period of time where it was just us, and we were talking about it. Had nothing to do with Bigfoot. We were talking about life stuff, and it was super cool. And then later I was duetting with Shane right before he tried to kill us in the side by side. So it was just a good night all around.
But did you die?
No, I'm alive.
There you go.
More alive.
So I mean, Eli unfortunately had to get going. He had his work going on, but he, like, for example, he was telling me he really wanted to talk to Mark Marcel. Like, that for him was a big highlight, and they hit it off really well. And they've got some projects they're going to kind of help each other out on, which I think is just phenomenal. But just that downtime too. Just when we were kind of hanging out before we went out to the camp, just hanging out with Derek, and just seeing how normal everybody is, and because people in this subject, or I guess with the way the general public, and we've all experienced this that are into it. You say you're into Bigfoot, obviously you get some weird looks and everything every once in a while. We've all experienced it to some extent, but just seeing, how normal everyone is. And that was really interesting about maybe Aaron and Nicole's experience. You're not coming from the Bigfoot world. So absolutely, just love that aspect of it. And like I said, and I'll say it a million times, one of the best groups I've ever worked with, the OP for sure. And I'm thrilled to kind of show what you guys have going on out there and what we had go on. But I think let's start maybe taking some audience questions. I know there was some pretty cool questions coming in. So let's start taking one. I think there was one from Bigfoot Society here. Let's see if I can find this guy. So a bit of a humorous one, but this is Jeremiah over at Bigfoot Society. How's it going, Jeremiah? He says, question, what was the favorite Twilight related experience you had in the PNW?
I licked Bella's truck.
That was true. It wasn't a favorite moment.
That was one of my favorite moments. Was licking Bella's truck, and then having my picture taken doing it while there was a line of people standing in front of me as I did it. So that was a highlight for me.
Oh man.
My favorite Twilight related moment was Seth realizing he had booked us in a Twilight themed resort.
Yeah, I had no idea.
Oh my gosh.
Twilight menus, cut out cardboard people, giant vampire signs.
I just knew it was like a cabin. It was the way it looked online was like it was a cabin in the woods, and they kind of like advertised it as a cabin in the woods. And then we get there, and it's like a campground, and it like huge banner that says welcome Twilight fans. And I'm like, oh no.
It was fantastic.
The area known for Bigfoot and vampires.
I've never even seen any of those things. we had to take Amy Boo there and some other people. They were so excited when we were at the property a couple years ago. And
because Forks is not that far from that area. I mean, I remember when we drove to the Hoe and we saw the Twilight stuff, and on the clip I have from that sequence, the mic got disconnected from the handy cam. So I'm watching Eli filming I'm reviewing this afterwards, and I'm watching his footage of him zooming in on a shot that says Twilight, and there's just this horrible like electronic noise that comes on. And I'm like, oh, this is fitting. It's probably stay away from this weird vampire stuff. But that's funny. Now we have a question for Todd, actually, from Greg. He asked, Todd, is that an SG behind you?
Yes.
Awesome.
Yeah, right there.
Could have played some Bigfoot tunes out there. Maybe some Jim Henry.
Jim Henry. All the Bigfoot hits.
Absolutely. Oh man. So we've got an awesome question from Carrick, who hosted the show last week. Obviously, he's got his channel Crash Course Cryptozoology. He says, is there any correlation between the materials used to build the mystery nests and known gorilla nests? And did the knuckle and handprints ever get casted? Excellent questions.
Yeah, so I'll jump on there. Yeah, all the hand impressions got casted. There was no knuckle impressions per se. They're all hand impressions. There was 2 hand impressions and a partial hand impression. They were all casted. Is there any correlation between gorilla beds? Oh, man. Like I said, I think Todd touched upon this earlier. Derek Randall's, after coming across these nests, are being led to these nests by one of these individuals that does the timber survey. And this individual that does this stuff, he's been at this for like 27 plus years. He's never seen anything like these nests. So, and neither did a couple of DNR guys and the actual owner of this property, in their, many, many years, 250 years combined of field time. None of these guys had seen anything like this. And, yes, the nest, after Derek had done some research on it, yeah, it's crazy. Obviously we don't have mountain gorillas or silverbacks or, cross river gorillas up here in the Pacific Northwest, but we have something going on up here that these nests look so similar, at least they did look so similar to what gorillas do, even chimpanzees
Right.
in some aspects. The way they're weaved together, formulated, it's uncanny. It literally is uncanny. Obviously, we're talking about different foliage, different, mainly huckleberry. In some
Right.
cases, a little bit of salal, which is a ground cover up here in the Pacific Northwest. That is a berry-giving plant. Different foliage, but so similar. We're not talking about something that just scrapes something together or pushes something together. These nests were formulated. They were built for a purpose. And not just built, but man, the amount of time and work and effort that it took to make some of these nests is just unbelievable. First time into these nests, I was blown away. And I did do my own research on this, looking at what gorillas do and other primates, known primates. And it was so different, yes, but so similar in a lot of aspects that it was just unreal, just mind-blowing to see this. And it's half the reason I moved up to Washington State in 2017, because they were so profound to me. And I thought, man, if I'm going to jump up to the next game of research, and if these indeed are something to do with Sasquatch, I want to be a part of it. I want to know everything about these nests. And so, over the last, 3-4 years, that's what I've done. That's what the Limb Project has done. But there's a great correlation to gorillas specifically and chimpanzees and other nest building primates. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm telling you, just absolutely blown away. And nobody, outside of the Limb Project, we have a lot of academics in the Limb Project, but even outside that, nobody could tell us what made these. They're not indigenous to this area. So profound.
Yeah, one of my favorite parts about when we were down there was having you kind of demonstrate. Previously, I'd been talking to Doug Hychek about it, and he said, I got a challenge for you when you go out there. Try and snap those huckleberries and start weaving them together and try and make the nest thing. So I was like, okay, I'll give it a try. And we actually had you try it, Shane. We filmed this sequence of you basically trying to snap some huckleberries and kind of do something with it. And just even like a little tiny huckleberry branch, very hard for, an adult male to snap. So obviously something with a lot of dexterity and strength was doing this. And as you guys have talked about, we talked about that, I think, when you came on the show as well, the elimination of other possible critters that would do something like that, the wildlife that's up there. So absolutely fascinating just to see that and be in that environment and actually kind of see, and even seeing what was left of the nest. Obviously, as you guys kept mentioning, it's not as impressive as it was originally, but still it was incredible. Like just sitting there and kind of looking at what was there and thinking about the possibilities. For me, we did a whole sequence with Chris too. We were filming and just talking about that and just how interesting that was.
You guys didn't even see the big one.
Yeah. I mean, so you guys got to see one little area of nests, and there's multiple areas along these fingers of multiple nests, and especially one really large one. But to take you guys out there would have been one heck of a trek. You guys probably you probably would have called it quits after that. I'll just say that. But no, I mean, the amount of power, the amount of this took something with an opposable thumb, no doubt about it. In my opinion, in Dr. Jeff Meldrum's opinion, and many others' opinion, to build these nests, it took something with an opposable thumb. And people can argue it's human or not. It's not human. These aren't areas people hunt. These aren't areas people hike or fish or any of that stuff in. These are areas that somebody with a job, like a timber cruiser who initially found the original nest site, go to, period.
Yeah.
It's way off trail. Obviously, Alex and Seth and the gang here, you guys had a little bit of a trail to go down. It was rudimentary, but it was a little bit of a trail because we've been trekking in and out of there. But when this timber surveyor initially went into this area, it was no trail. And he walked right in on this only because he had to be there. He had a job to do, and he was there. He'd been doing it for 27 plus years. And so, yeah, it's not one of those areas. You start getting into the stuff and you get whacked in the face and it's over your head and you can walk on a bear or an animal. Yeah, it's not a place you're going to, just do your activities in.
Oh, yeah. I mean, if it was just us looking for a spot to camp, that's like the last place I would want to go hike and trek into. You need to have such tremendous motivation to be going to like one of these nest sites. Anyway, if, like I said, if we weren't going there for that purpose, the humans are typically, and other animals, some animals will take the path of least resistance, whether it's a human trail or that's why, these things probably haven't been discovered before, is just, you're not really thinking about looking in these spots. And as we know, that was kind of an accidental discovery, but there's a lot of questions about the nests here. I'll take another one from Kevin, who says, if there are nests, one would expect to find hair, food scraps, and scat nearby. Was there anything else ever found, or was it just the nests?
So the initial nest site, the initial nest spine, I mean, to date, we found 23, 24 nests, including the one that Todd Hell and I walked in on. All the nests we collected hair from. Yes, there was hair. There wasn't food scraps because these nests were made months prior, other than the initial one that was being made, that Todd Hale and I walked in. All the initial nests were months old. So food scraps were long gone.
Yeah.
We think that the Salmon Barren Creek down below may have provided a really good protein source during certain months, that being, like January, February, March. But there was no, other than hair, yes, there was scat found, and we do have some of that scat found. But as Dr. Meldrum will tell you, scat's great, but a lot of people saying Dr. Meldrum's scat. But he always says, I want two foot impressions and a steaming pile, to send me scat. Don't just send me some random turd, so to speak.
Imagine how much he gets. Oh my gosh.
He gets a lot. That's the thing is that when you're testing scat specifically, you want like something with that you want it fresh. There's like a mucus over that scat. You
want like the end part, because that has like the most DNA, right?
Exactly. And you want like the mucus that's on it, almost like a mucus film on it. And you want that. Well, no, when we found the nest, there was scat in here and we still have it. What we did find was hair, a lot of hair in these nests. And between Dr. Meldrum and his lab and Cindy Dosen of Homini Enigma up in British Columbia, it's primate hair, no doubt about it. It's primate hair. And it's definitely whatever made these nests left that hair behind. We did find other animal hair, known animal hair, raccoon, bear, deer, all that stuff in these nests. But the most prolific amount of hair was from this unknown, and definitely primate hair. So that adds an element, definitely an element of interest to this whole phenomenon. And we did find, like Todd mentioned earlier, even in the initial nest site, there was foot impressions cast and found and seen. We had two rocks.
The rocks. If you could talk about that, that'd be awesome.
Yeah. So there was two rocks found at what we called a point nest. So the initial nest site had kind of a V formation. The nests were kind of in a V formation, very military-like, so to speak again. And one of our members, Tom Baker, who's a former Top Gun pilot, when he saw how the nests were laid out, he said, man, this is very military-like. Even elk kind of do that. They kind of do somewhat of a formation like that, when they bed down. Now, these two rocks were at what I call the point nest, the nest that leads right down, one of the larger nests, but right down the trail to the Salmon Barren Creek. And these two rocks are about a little smaller than softball size, but they had obvious scuff marks on them. And there were only two rocks at that time above the ground. Everything else there was no rocks in this area, basically, but the few in the ground. And they had scuff marks on them. Something at one point in time smacked those rocks or scuffed those rocks together. And for the audience, that's something that we hypothesize Sasquatch does, is they clank rocks together or use rocks for knocking. A lot of wood knocks, I think, are actually rocks on the tree. We call them wood knocks. But I actually believe that the rocks on a tree are up here in the Pacific Northwest, as I described to you guys, it's hard to find a really good solid limb that you can beat continuously without just exploding because they're so wet and nasty. Mm-hmm. Rocks you can beat, you can smack, you can throw. How many times, and I've had it happen to me, and Todd's happened to him. You have rocks thrown at you. Rocks play a huge role in this. So those two rocks at the point nest that had scuff marks right there placed were really interesting to me because of the scuff marks. Something had smacked those rocks together. So one is, something that makes you go, at the end of the day.
Another thing,
we got to see those rocks actually at the OP cabin, but go ahead, Todd.
Another thing we haven't even talked about tonight. We've gotten a lot of audio out of there, especially last year after we found the new nest. In that 2-week period, we were recording a lot, and we got some crazy stuff, stuff I've never heard before, nor David Ellis.
Right, right. Yeah, I mean, the audio kind of speaks for itself for me because, a lot of it's David Ellis. I think, Seth, you interviewed David Ellis. The audio is really unique because what's happened for years with Sasquatch research is that people just listen to something and they go, oh, Sasquatch or this or that. David Ellis and Magala Hala, who's not associated with this Limit Project, but has worked with us. They've kind of done this thing where, and taught me and Todd and Chris Spencer, who's amazing at this audio stuff, looking at it is actually to look at the audio, not just to listen. Your ears will play tricks on you. If you can visually look at the audio on a spectrograph or spectrogram and compare it to known animals, coyotes. I mean, one of the biggest, and Chris Spencer will tell you this again and again, one of the biggest contributors to Sasquatch, or, what people confuse stuff with, is coyotes. But then you got owls. Owls are a big one up here in the Pacific Northwest. Owls are another one. And then you got, cat, like cougar and bobcat, that make tremendous sounds, screams, rabbits, you name it. If you can visually compare those sounds to the known stuff and rule them out, and then you're left with that unknown, visually looking at the stuff. And then you can compare it to other stuff. And we've done this. We compared it to known primates. And sometimes it's eerily similar. We compared it to humans. And so the audio is one of those things, like Todd mentioned, that it's not just listening to, but it's looking at it. And it just adds another picture, another piece of the puzzle that we've been working on for years. And there's other great groups out there. NOAC's been doing this, and kudos to them. And there's other individuals and groups. I don't like to give the Limit Project like the end all be all. I think we're a fantastic organization full of really good people. But there's other individuals and groups doing the same stuff. And my hats are off to them. And we do collaborate with some of them. So the audio, the hair, the nest building itself, and the tracks and the handcasts. I mean, at what point do you just say, okay, at what point do you stop and go, wow, outside of the Limit Project, we already know what we're dealing with for the most part.
Right. No, absolutely. Now, and that's interesting. Obviously, Seth, you have, for those that have seen On the Trail of Bigfoot, you had kind of experiences in X, Area X with the NOAC group. So, I mean, just interesting from your perspective, I'd imagine, seeing kind of those two groups and obviously how they differ, and just the areas are completely different too. But
the similarities though are there. Like they're definitely, like, as soon as I got in there, I noticed similarities between the nest site and X, specifically the amount of undergrowth. It's you can't underplay the difficulty to get back to those nest sites. And I'm sure without the trail that we were following, it's probably insane.
Right.
And
it wasn't even really a trail.
No, I mean, it wasn't like we had an easy time getting back there, even with that. But I mean, with that, the sheer amount of undergrowth all through that region too. I'm not just talking about the nest site. I mean, we noticed it in a lot of different locations where we went there. And that really reminded me of X, and then the water sources, and the fact that, X is situated down in a valley, and all the activity that I experienced when I was there was coming from on high, aimed down at us. And you've got those heights above, valleys and this. I mean, there's just a lot of similarities between the two. I felt the same sort of, and I hate to even talk about this because I'm not a fan of when people talk about how they feel like something is happening. But I mean, there was on the last night when we were in there, I had the sensation that we weren't alone. And I was like that pretty much the entire night. And I wasn't on edge, but I felt like there was something else in the woods that night. And that reminded me of X, and I don't feel like that everywhere I go. I don't, I've been in tons of areas where people claim Bigfoot's there, and I haven't, I don't get that sensation, but there was always that feeling that there was something else with us in the woods. So, there's a lot of similarities between the locations of the two. And then, in terms of the way the groups approach the scientific method and the methodology behind what they're doing, they're both very, what is the word?
Meticulous.
They're very meticulous.
Yeah.
Both groups are very meticulous in how they approach gathering evidence and analyzing what they've got. And yeah, I mean, there's a lot of similarities. I would say I don't know that you can compare the two exactly, just because of the ultimate mission of both groups is slightly different. But I loved the time I got to spend there in X, but I think I prefer the Olympic Peninsula.
Sure. Yeah, no, and definitely, I mean, interesting to have that kind of perspective, having been in both, and just it's, outsider perspective, even before I was there with the OP, just the way both groups seem to function was, not like releasing information every day or posting stuff every day. It's a very slow, and as you mentioned, meticulous kind of data collection, and then really channeling it through proper authorities. So I thought that was pretty interesting. So we'll take a few more questions here. We've got one from Greg. He says, is this the first time the OP has allowed a film crew to see the nests?
Yes, absolutely. We did. Discovery Canada came down a number of years ago, but we just gave them footage. We gave them some footage of the nest, and not much. But this is the first time ever we've allowed anybody into this area. And as I mentioned earlier, the first time we've actually camped down towards some of these nest areas and allowed you guys in there to, Alex and Eli were camping out in this area. We made a specific camp just for us. First time we've camped down in this area. So you guys had access to stuff that, I mean, literally nobody has. We've never allowed anybody, but that's because, we followed you, small town monsters for years and years, and really got comfortable with you guys. And we're so proud to, we've seen your work. It's phenomenal. And so this one for us was like a no-brainer. Derek and I sat down, we talked about it, and it was like 2-second conversation. Yeah, let's do this. Let's bring these guys in here. They're honest. There's no fudging of information, whether it's on our end or your end. You guys just go at it, film. And we're very proud to have you guys out here. Wouldn't do it with anybody else, period.
That's another thing Derek brought up. There was no retakes. Hey, can you walk down this trail? Hey, we got to shoot your boots. Hey, let's do this. We just did what we do, and you guys filmed it. So that's made it really easy.
Made it real.
I didn't know what to expect as far as that went.
Yeah.
What's that?
I'm too lazy. I'm too lazy for reshoots. I can't.
Well, it's inauthentic. It's like TV shows,
I know. We were there when Derek. Yeah, we were there when Derek was saying that, and Eli and I were joking. We're like, okay, so should we say, okay, can you just walk back for me real quick so I can get that in slow-mo just to see the reaction? But I got to say, Derek, especially just as, what a great guy. I wish I could have spent more time with him. Just such a kind person, as you all are. But just so fascinating. Now, I just want to take a moment to introduce Chris, who's popped into the room as well. This is Chris Spencer. He does a lot of audio stuff. Actually, he's been emailing us back and forth about some audio stuff that may have happened. So, Chris, do you want to just say a little bit about what you do with the OP real quick?
He just got off work.
I put recorders out in the woods. Blowing his nose, snoring, and farting on occasion.
Man, it was a snore fest down
And
there
singing.
for sure. Between Shane and myself, I think we're joking. You guys in the middle of those tents had like a surround sound snoring kind of thing going on. So if there was anything going on around you probably wouldn't have known.
I was reviewing that audio yesterday. That was wonderful.
I could imagine. Awesome. But yeah, awesome to have you on, Chris. And Chris was one, basically this group of 4 OP members is the ones that Eli and I were with pretty much the whole time. So they were kind of our OP family there while we were hanging out in the bush, which was awesome. Now, Jeremiah from Bigfoot Society asks, are you able to touch on how Mark Mazel was involved in the STM filming? If not, no sweat. It's a secret.
Well, yeah. Secret. I mean, I can mention this because I didn't know this either until Shane told me. But like, Mark is in the OP, so like, but Mark was going to be involved either way. I was going to try to get Mark involved just because we were back in the area where we had him involved with the first series, and he's so knowledgeable about the history of really just Bigfoot history, and so I had him in mind to sort of help flesh out any historical accounts from that area, which is really like his primary role in the film will be to give that historical context for the region. Because I don't know that people really think about that fact, like these sightings taking place in that area. There's a reason the Olympic project is where they are. And,
right.
And anytime there's a group that is researching extensively in an area, if it's due to activity in that area, it's because that activity goes back decades, if not centuries. And you've definitely got that same sort of historical record there in the Olympic Peninsula and around that area. And so Mark was there to help really flesh out the history of the Olympic Peninsula, but then he also was able to talk about his read on the group as someone who's a fairly new member to the group.
Right.
There's a reason they bought that property too.
Yeah.
Which was super interesting to find out about. And just hearing about some of that, because you're driving through there. I mean, if you were not interested in Bigfoot, this would just be a beautiful area to pass through. You've got Lake Crescent, the Olympic range all around you. I mean, it's just photogenic, whichever spot. I mean, there was like a hot spring that you could hike up to. There's just endless amounts of things you could do, but especially as Bigfoot people, knowing that there's that history and hearing the history about the cabin and just seeing, in the OP kind of building all the casts and all the folks that have passed through there. And I think one of the, just hanging out at the bar with everybody and just that was like just the awesome downtime moments. But let's see, we got one more question I'll take about the nests specifically from Brady Baxter. He asks, are the nests believed to be used long-term, or do they seem to be temporary nests like those used by other primate species? Could the nests be used to indicate population numbers? So I don't know if Shane wants to take that or Todd or whoever.
Oh, Shane's going to take it.
I think your mic is still off, Shane.
It is. I'm a rookie. It is.
The best mic here.
I think I got the gist of it. Long term. Oh, definitely. So
I can put it up.
Yeah. Thank you. And I'm reading this right now. Okay. That's such a great question. This is what separates, I think, from known primates is that, could the nest be used to indicate population numbers? I don't think so, personally. Maybe small groups of individuals, because I definitely think this was an area and used specifically in certain times of the year or certain years for it's a birthing area. I really do believe this is a birthing area or a nursery area. And I don't think the nests are made for a one-night experience like most known primates, like gorillas and chimps. They'll make a nest for one night and they'll move on. Boom, see ya. They're intricate, but at the same time, the amount of work that went into building these nests was profound. So, and I keep using the word profound. I'll probably get hit for that. I do all the time on my podcast. But they are very interesting. The amount of work that went into building these, to me, screams that this was made for a lengthy period of time. And by length, I mean whether that's 3 days, 4 days, a week, or a month. I don't know. But the amount of hair found in some of these nests indicates to me that this was made for at least a week. These nests were made for at least a week. And they would jump from finger to finger. So you have multiple fingers with all these nests on. So they would jump, make their impression, eat, and then move on. And then move on to each finger. So not to give up their position. Which, and like with gorillas, they'll make a nest for a night and they'll move on. That doesn't seem to be the case here. These were formed and laid in for a lengthy period of time. Alex and the gang here, some of you guys got to see the heavy impressions that these nests, I mean, they weren't dug out. Something heavy laid in this area, in these areas for a while. And then you have the amount of food in these areas, and then the different size nests. And then you also have, as you guys didn't get to see this, but there were 2 bush nests made, what we call practice nests, which they're very reminiscent of what gorillas do with their young. They teach them how to build a nest in a bush, and there were these 2 bush nests that were, you couldn't hold anything in, it couldn't hold any weight, but it was a practice nest. And so to me, based on the history of this area, based on the sightings from loggers, even based on some trail cam footage I've obtained, and just this whole area, these were nests made for a period of time. Whatever that period of time was, I can't tell you, but not an overnight thing. And numbers, you can look at the size, at least as the Lint Project could at the time when we came across these nests, you could see different sized nests. That tells me that it's more than one individual, and which rules out just about everything up here in the Pacific Northwest, period. Bears don't really sleep all together, and I've heard that time and time again. It's bear. It's not black bear. It's not black bear. But you can see the different size nests from different individuals. And we brought we brought a lot of different individuals into this area. All sorts of biologists, anthropologists, primatologists, and a couple of zoologists that work directly with primates, both bonobos, chimpanzees, and gorillas. And they could see characteristics in these nests that showed that they were made by different individuals. So that tells me that you're not dealing with one individual. In most cases, not 2 individuals, but at least 3 to 4, if not more individuals making these nests. And that's why it's so dang interesting. And that's why we keep doing what we're doing, because we're pretty solid on the fact that this is not known behavior, obviously in the Pacific Northwest. And historically speaking, not to ramble on, but there have been nests found throughout North America, Alaska, Oregon, Washington, California, Idaho, Montana. And for your listenership here, and I mentioned this on your show, Alex, there was a nest found down in 1967 above Bluff Creek, a creek called Scorpion Creek. There was a nest found above Scorpion Creek, which feeds into Bluff Creek, which is a stone's throw away from the Patterson-Gimlin film. Lyle Laverty, another timber cruiser, came across a nest the same year, 1967. And he had never, in all his years, seen anything like it. So here we have another nest found, in an area. And if you look at Patty, obviously she's a female, right?
Right,
She's got breasts and whatnot, but she looked like she had either given birth or was about to give birth, in my opinion. And I'm no expert there, but I've talked to a lot of anthropologists and primatologists. And, for those that lean towards that it's real, yeah, it's really unique. And one other tidbit I'll throw out there with the Patterson-Gimlin film, Isaac Tian, who you guys interviewed, he is working on some, the Patterson-Gimlin film, for all these years, I'm like, what else can you do with the film? There's pretty much nothing else you can do with it. Isaac Tian is a Lint Project member, a brilliant young individual, brilliant mind. He's working on some stuff that I hope makes it public someday, because you've got a lot of individuals that have worked on the film in the past, but his resolution and his expertise on the film really drives it home for me that is a real living individual, and a female that either had given birth or was about to. And I lean towards had given birth, and then you have the nest involved. So yeah, sorry to ramble, but that's
totally. No, I agree. It was really interesting talking to Isaac about that kind of a little bit afterwards, after the filming and everything, just off camera.
Right.
Really interesting stuff. But I have a special treat. I noticed that Mark Marcel was actually in the comments, and I sent him the link. So I'm going to pop Aaron out. Let's pop Mark in here. There he is.
Oh, the man.
Awesome. I saw Westport Aquarium, and then I remember when you gave me the contact information that you ran the aquarium. So I'm like, oh, that's awesome. That has to be Mark himself. So for folks that don't know, Mark is kind of Mr. Ape Canyon. Let's call him that. So do you want to talk, Mark, maybe a little bit about your involvement with the OP?
Well, I was very graciously, my first invite into the OP was like about 6 or 8 months ago, about the same time when Amy Blue was invited. into the Olympic project, and I got a call from our very good friend David Ellis, and he was like, "Hey, would you consider being a member of the Olympic project?" And the very first thing I said, "Have you talked to Shane and Derek about this? Really?" Because it's like, are they okay with that? And so I sat on it for about 2 or 3 days because I'm, like I told Seth, I'm not really a joiner. I don't want to be, part of a club that would have me as a member, as Groucho used to say. But I decided to be a member of the OP. And that's how I got to know all of my good friends. And you're all my good friends. So, I had a damn good time up there. I was only up there for a day or two, but it was good hanging out with everybody. But I've been listening in for about 15 or 20 minutes. Before you guys leave the subject of the nests, Chris, could you reiterate what you...
Oh, I think we lost him there a bit.
Rose.
No. Right before the question.
What was the question?
No.
Uh-oh. It's just frozen.
Oh,
Well, we'll see. Let me see if I'll try to...
I'll tell you what, Alex, I'm
let's
going to
see.
jump off here. Maybe that'll help. I'm going to jump off, but thanks for having me on. And
thanks so much, Shane. Awesome to have you on as always. Definitely will have to have you on again at some point. And yeah, I mean, can't say it enough. What an awesome time we had out there. But yeah, thanks, man.
No, thanks everybody, and look forward
Shane.
to talking with you guys. Thanks, Seth, and thanks for having me on. And man, talk to Mark. He's a wealth of knowledge.
Yeah, I will actually be having him on the show in a few months here coming on. So I'm excited. He's still, yeah, it looks like he popped out.
I'm going to jump off. Yeah, I'm going to
All
jump
right,
off.
take it easy, Shane. Good night. Awesome. So we'll see now if Mark comes back in. So we got Aaron back. But man, what an awesome discussion it's been.
Ask Shane something before he left.
Oh no!
I was.
This is like the question game now. No, everyone's.
Yeah. I forgot to ask this while I was there, but is there any time that they plan to log that area anytime soon? Has anybody mentioned anything about that? Because that would be kind of a bummer that would all be decimated then.
As far as I know, they've, since Todd and Shane found the new nest, they've kind of given them free reign again. They haven't said any time that the owners of the property are interested in the subject. So as far as I know, they're not planning on logging the areas where the old nests and the new nests were found yet. So,
the original deal was 5 years.
yeah.
And then I think they extended it, or it's just gone without saying. I know Derek talked to the owner a few weeks ago, actually, and I think everything's still pretty good.
Awesome.
Because I was concerned about that this year too, at the 5-year mark.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, I think, yeah, that's what I heard as well from either Derek or Shane at one point was, just that like the interest is there. And that's something I think just in general with the PNW. I'm just going to mute you, Aaron. I think that maybe your mic that's making that noise. Sorry. Or you can mute yourself. But the thing just.
I'll go ahead and step out. That way it doesn't affect the audio. So
okay. Whatever works, man. If you want to just mute it, that's fine. We like having you here.
All right. Well, I'll stick around.
I like you.
I was just going to say just really quickly about the cultural aspect, Sasquatch is everywhere in the PNW, especially. And then, for somebody from the East Coast where the subject is still taboo. I mean, there's so many stories, and as Seth and, people that have been into the subject know there's stories everywhere, but it's just not as socially acceptable. Probably the PNW is like the pinnacle of that, where there's everyone knows somebody who's had a Bigfoot story, or Bigfoot is not just a laughable idea like it is in other parts of the country. So having the owners of that property just being interested in it is, I think, fantastic. And that's why, you guys are able to get into some of these areas, and, out here it probably would not be taken seriously, and they would just log it right away and say, nope, we don't care. It's a silly subject. So definitely interesting to see that. But yeah, as we start to slowly wrap up the show here, if anyone else has any final thoughts or anything, maybe Seth, do you want to talk about just release timeline with the Discovery?
Yeah, I mean, so in terms of when the release of this movie is going to happen for the public, I really don't know. I'm assuming January or even February of next year. But as far as like Kickstarter backers and all that stuff, it'll be by the end of this year. So I'm thinking probably November or December for our audience, for the STM crowd. But when a distributor gets their mitts on it, they're going to want to, really take their time with getting it ready to go and putting it out for the general public. So I'm assuming January or February of next year. Now, the only thing that would alter that is if our release schedule is constantly in flux this year just because of how many projects we're putting out. Mm-hmm. And as of this morning, I've kind of like, my plan is we're going to finish Discovery last. So it will be our last project of the year. It'll come out at the end of the year for our backers, and then for everyone else, probably early next year. But what would alter that is if something happens with the werewolf suit that we've got ordered for Rougarou. If that comes in late, then we're going to switch the schedule around again, and Discovery is going to move up ahead of Rougarou and become like our late or like Halloween time release, sure, like September, because everything's just constantly changing right now. But yeah, the plan is hopefully this is like the big end of year release. So that's awesome. Yeah, obviously filmmaking, it's a complicated business, but awesome. Something to definitely look forward to. And actually, Mark just sent me the message. He said his computer overheated and died, unfortunately. So he did have the question, though, for Chris. So he said, I wanted Chris to discuss the use of huckleberry green used in birthing among humans and how they relate to the nest site. I don't think we talked about that, but that's something that Shane has talked about, too.
Oh, yeah. Actually, Wes from Squatcher Matrix kind of did some digging on the huckleberry, and it turns out that particular species of huckleberry that's in the nest site has been used for helping humans with birthing. Native Americans used it. Spread the fresh leaves in the spring. They have some pain-killing attributes, and I can't remember. Todd knows about it too. We've been actually, for the last 2 months, I think we started discussing this in a little private group we have, but it's actually a medicinal. The leaves on these huckleberry are medicinal, and it's that particular species, because there's several different species of evergreen huckleberry, and it's only this particular species that has some medicinal attributes to it that is used in helping with birthing.
And
so
that's
go ahead, Todd.
They would also make a tea
yeah,
out of it with sugar. They would drink after to gain strength.
I think probably why Mark brought it up was because there were piles of the huckleberry leaves found stripped from the branches, just little piles of them sitting there as if they were to be consumed later, possibly, or maybe it was just a time, waste of time just playing with them. No idea.
Yeah, but you have to imagine other animals in the woods, they definitely know the medicinal properties of certain plants. I mean, that's something that humans would have known as well when they lived closer to the land. Obviously now it's different, but yeah, that's just a fascinating detail, because hearing about that kind of proposed birthing sites as well, really, really interesting. So I'm glad Mark brought that up, and I will be having Mark on at the show. So folks, don't worry. He didn't just make a little short appearance. He'll be coming on to talk about Ape Canyon. So that's going to be great. But yeah, I mean, it's been an awesome show. Thank you guys all, obviously, for coming on. It's been a lot of fun. I have links in the description below to, obviously, Small Town Monsters as well as the Olympic Project. But maybe do the Olympic Project members still here? Do you guys want to talk about where people can find you, if they want to follow you or follow up on the research or whatever works? Or if you don't want to be followed, just say that too.
Well, I don't do anything on social media Bigfoot related. I post pictures of beer and racing and trees.
Nice.
Yeah, it's a running joke. His YouTube's got like more subscribers than mine, and he's still gaining more subscribers than me. He hasn't posted in 10 years?
A long time. I still get subscribers. Yeah, there was a lot of Bigfoot stuff on there, and people are still finding me on there. But I'm just on Facebook. I mean, I have tons of Bigfoot friends on Facebook, so I'm pretty easy to find.
Awesome.
I'm pretty much the same way. I do have a YouTube. It's called Toutle River Valley Skookum, Chris Spencer. and I post audio up there. Awesome. I post the spectrogram and post a lot of known animals, but I do post some of the unknown stuff after I've vetted it quite a bit with David. And I get about every 6 months I post a bunch, and then I don't. So.
Sure. Yeah, and you guys do a little bit of research like further into other parts of Washington as well, right?
Yeah, I have several areas down in Southwest Washington that I actively research. And one particular area I've been in recording for almost 6 years now. So
awesome.
Yeah.
There's another area we go to with some BFRO people too.
Yeah.
It's kind of a, I don't know. That's not a collaboration. It's just kind of independent, you know, if you feel like going down there, but there's a place we meet down there that has nothing to do with the OP.
Gotcha. Awesome. Well, Eli says, miss you all. He's probably at work right now.
I have some good pictures too of him making his first fire in the Pacific Northwest.
That was cool.
Right,
that was a fun experience.
Needing him to be in a bag of rice, but
yeah. Yeah. Oof.
But the pictures are good.
Eli had a lot of first times. I mean, he took his first woods bathroom. He first fire. He had a mouse. So I was, he left the tent door open. Eli and I were sharing the tent. This was crazy. So it was hilarious. I've never seen a mouse that like exasperatedly trying to get out of a tent. It was like trying to get out. So I was getting ready to go to bed. I was up with Rebecca and Todd and some of the guys. Eli was already passed out. He left the tent door open, and as soon as I'm going in there, this little mouse is just like struggling to get out. Was just kind of just hanging out with Eli, and he was just out cold. So Eli had a little mouse buddy in there.
I listened to that on audio.
Great.
I just heard that in the audio yesterday.
Oh, I know. So funny, but. Man, it's been awesome reminiscing, and what a trip it was. And I can't wait for some of the stuff that's going to come out from this, production wise. Obviously, folks, I will post about that, and we'll kind of keep you updated on what's going on. But awesome to have all you beautiful people on. And thank you guys for coming on tonight.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us.
All right, guys. Well, thank you everyone in the comments for your questions as always. And it's awesome that this was like the 1 year kind of anniversary show. Really great. As I mentioned, oh, thank you. As I mentioned at the beginning of the show, next week we'll have on Tobias and Emily Wayland. We're going to be talking about all sorts of Fortean stuff, a little bit different topics. Last week, if you haven't checked it out, check out Carrick's presentation on his top 10 Bigfoot stuff. Really awesome. It was a great time. So until then, guys, everyone have a great rest of your week. Aaron's still muted. Well, bye, Aaron. See you guys later. Have a good week, everybody.
See you guys later.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.